Hey there, and welcome back to another Your Friendly Neighbourhood Spiderman review. And this time we're looking at Episode 3, Secret Identity Crisis, which picks up from the massive cliffhanger at the end of Episode 2, where Norman reveals to Peter that he knows that he's Spider-Man, having seen him suit up in the stairwell to go and confront Butane when he was doing his arson attack in the abandoned building. I'll be honest, when the scene came back, I was a little bit disappointed. I was hoping for them to jump straight into the conversation about Spider-Man and kick the story into high gear for the episode, only for them to cut away with Peter having a bit of an internal crisis about being found out and wondering what the hell he's going to do about it. Instead of a chat with Norman, it's a chat with Nico, who questions Peter about what happened the night before, as he was supposed to go to the party with her but ended up bailing, leaving her to socialise with the likes of Sweaty Mike. Not his fault, but it does feel like this is going to be a common story thread going forward with their dynamic throughout the season. I'm going to guess she starts to feel like he's pulling away and that she gets isolated from Peter's life as the internship and being Spider-Man start to take his focus more and more away. We see the next hint of that immediately, where she says there's a kung fu movie marathon playing at an art house theatre that very same night, but he can't go because he's scheduled for a dinner with Norman. It's kind of a nothing scene, to be honest, but I guess it shows that Nico's in a foster home. I think her parents in the comic world are supposed to be villains and she runs away from them, so has that already happened, I wonder? Maybe they're in prison. It'll probably be revealed at some point. Maybe not this season, though. So off to dinner Peter goes, and here he gets a taste of what being rich and powerful is truly like. Walking into one of those super high class and expensive restaurants to find that Norman has rented out the entire place just for their dinner and conversation. Okay, finding myself jealous of a cartoon character was not something I expected going into this episode, but here we are. Wish I was that rich. Also, Peter's extremely based in this scene. As soon as he realizes that Norman is being 100% legit when he offers him anything off the menu on the house, he abuses that offer for all it's worth and tucks into a bunch of different gourmet items. Good for him. He's obviously not exactly from the richest family out there, as we see later on in the episode, and can you imagine how much energy he'd be burning as Spider-Man? Dude must be in a perpetual state of hunger. Then we get down to business. Norman references Peter being Spider-Man, and despite him having security footage of everything going down, Peter decides to try to convince him that it was fake footage that somebody on the security team had doctored, to play a prank. A prank on the CEO. It is the worst excuse of all time, especially since Norman is so easily able to disprove it all, but I liked that. I liked that Peter's presented as kind of, well, not dumb, but he's kind of bad at thinking on his feet. It works because it really does emphasize the fact that he is just a kid. He is inexperienced and he's going to make mistakes. It ties into his character and his place in the story really well. Also, I love that this is one of the first times that somebody's used CCTV to trace a hero and figure out who they are rather easily. Feels like something that would be rather straightforward, especially when so many of these guys remove their mask so often on random rooftops and in alleyways. Here, Norman reveals the reason that he started up the internship was to find Spider-Man so he could repay him for saving his son. In pursuit of that goal, he started the internship program. He thought that since none of the usual suspects in the scientific community likely made those gadgets for Spider-Man, that he had to go a bit younger. And so based on academic performance, he singled out 4 young people as likely candidates to be assisting Spider-Man, only to discover that Peter was Spider-Man. Also 4 candidates? That seems a bit low, doesn't it? In this universe there's an extreme plethora of super genius characters, but there's only 4 possible suspects? Well, maybe it does make sense. It would have to be narrowed down to just New York City, right? Still, it does seem like a bit of a small group. So Norman wants to help Peter and give him anything he wants in order to repay him for saving his son's life. But in the end, Peter refuses him, believing that he was given these powers for a reason, and that's to protect people. What he doesn't believe in, what he doesn't want, is to put other people at risk for his own goals and ideals, and that includes Norman and Oscorp, which to me was pretty funny, as isn't there a big framed picture of Captain America right outside Norman's office? To me that kind of implies that they've worked together to some degree. I mean, somebody has to make Cap's gear, right? I doubt he does it himself. I feel like working with huge name heroes like that would actually paint a far bigger target on his back than working with the likes of Spider-Man. Homemade costume era Spider-Man at that, but oh well. Also, that is one lucrative internship. $1,000 for the day, and it wasn't even a full working day either. Damn. After this scene, we're introduced to our villain of the week, or rather, our villains of the week, with both Speed Demon and Tarantula. They've obviously scored some cash, and they're ready to splash it to a mysterious seller, who via text message tells them to leave the money in a dumpster, which then comes to life, and climbs up the wall, leaving behind some tech for the two to use. I will say the visual of the dumpster growing arms and climbing away was very funny to me. Next up, we have it's a pretty depressing scene when you think about it. Peter comes home on a bit of a high with his $1,000 paycheck and leftovers from his dinner with Mr. Osborn, only to discover his aunt cleaning out her closet, with her revealing she's going to be selling a bunch of stuff to pay for the bills. Stuff that's mostly brand new or that had belonged to Uncle Ben. Meanwhile, Peter's there, considering quitting his high-pay internship, and he feels very guilty. In the very next scene with Nico, she makes a great point that May wouldn't want him to keep working there if it makes him unhappy just to help out. But at the same time, must feel so shit to watch her struggle to keep the family above water after Ben died. I came here to watch superheroes beat up on villains, not to feel melancholy at the financial struggles of the Parker family. I mean, it's a good thing, and it shows the story's getting me invested, but still, I already sense so much heartbreak coming in the future, I don't need more. Hey, guess what? The story's not even finished making me feel depressed, as up next we get a scene with Peter, Lonnie, Pearl, and Nico eating together in the cafeteria. Since the two aced their first lab experiment, Lonnie decides to buy Peter his lunch, and Pearl as well. Sadly, once the others go to sit down, turns out Lonnie's low on funds, and so instead of letting them down, he buys their lunches and skips out on his own, only eating an apple. Just back-to-back depressing scenes. Ever so slightly, we edge closer to him becoming Tombstone. I'm not ready for that. Their friendship is so sweet and he's such a nice guy. I wonder if he's going to be a completely reluctant Tombstone character, or if he's going to go full psycho like in the comics. So yeah, he only buys an apple before he gets a call from his mum asking him to come home, so Pearl drives him there, where he learns his little brother's been picked up by the cops, and that he joined a gang. Okay, so this is it. This is the beginning of the downfall. Oh man, I don't want it to happen this episode. This episode's just been a bummer so far. Of course, the little brother's done a runner, and so it's up to Lonnie to try to find him. Here, we come to some action. The big conflict of the episode. Tarantula and Speed Demon are checking out a jewelry store, being shown the most valuable rings in the store's inventory, when they decide that this is their moment, and they begin to rob it, throwing the security guard through the glass door and into a car. He lands pretty hard on the concrete too. So yeah, he ain't gonna be okay after that, I would expect. Probably cuts from the glass, a concussion, broken bones, internal bleeding. I mean, the dude went flying at pace. We briefly cut over to Peter, where we see he's been playing around with Uncle Ben's old camera. I wonder how long Ben's been dead in the story at this point. Are we going to explore that at all? Or is this a storyline that's going to be slightly referenced every now and then, but not looked at in much depth? I mean, for the most part, everybody already has a general idea of what that story would be. And less is often more in these contexts. Sometimes keeping it more mysterious works well because it lets you as the audience fill in the specifics while still getting that same emotional response. Back to the break-in, as the pair are making their exit, somehow the security guy has sat up and has gone for his gun. See, this guy should not be moving at all. He either got a mega punch or a mega kick from one of these two. These are blows that send Spider-Man flying later on and leave him kind of dazed and confused. A regular dude getting punted into a car through a window? Nah, he should be dead or badly hurt, not sitting up for more beatings. Maybe he's running on adrenaline, I suppose, but still. Stay down, Chrome Dome. Spider-Man swings down and saves the guy and webs up Speed Demon, only for Tarantula to use her power gloves to rip open the webs and free him. I gotta say, this whole scenario looks and plays out like a boss battle from an actual Spider-Man video game. It's so well done. Two villains with complementary powers who take turns fighting you, then create an area of effect attack so the battle arena you're in shrinks and you can't dodge as easily. Perfection. I do have to say though, I would think that Peter would wipe the floor with Tarantula, right? She has no powers, only gloves, and yet she's keeping him on his toes. Peter has super speed, super reflexes, and super strength. Even holding back, he should be able to beat her more easily, shouldn't he? Unless the gloves are giving her hands super speed and not just strength. Oh well, the battle here, it is pretty cool. I like how tactical it is, with the end result being Tarantula putting civilians in danger, which forces Spider-Man to save them, leaving him exposed for a big kick from Speed Demon. Once again showcasing that old trope, that it's far harder to be a hero than a villain. A villain just has to win, the hero has to save the day. Then from awesome action sequence to more bleak, depressing stuff. Lonnie tracks his little brother to the hideout of the gang using the family phone plan and demands that he leaves the gang and comes home. Unlike what I kind of initially thought, that this was just a youth gang, turns out this is the real deal. It's led by a man named Big Donovan, who makes it clear that Dre is not allowed to leave the gang, with the obvious implication being that if they try to take him, it's going to get violent. So instead, promising NFL hopeful Lonnie joins the gang to protect his little brother. This had me yelling at the TV. I was so mad. Yes, I feel bad for the little brother, but at the same time, I couldn't help but think, oh, great work, kid. You've ruined your brother's life. I know that's been probably too harsh, but that was my first feeling when I saw it. Then it's back to Spidey's battle in the streets. He gets his ass whooped significantly off screen, and when we return, he gets launched, smashing into a bus and then crash landing onto a taxi. Ouch. I know he has superpowers, but do you reckon that changes his pain tolerance, or would everything still largely hurt as much as you'd expect it to? Because if so, yikes. A squad of SWAT dudes rolls up on the villains and, like the nameless, faceless, generic cannon fodder they are, they get absolutely rinsed. They don't even bother firing their guns at these people. They just get destroyed. I get that this show probably has an age rating and all that, but I highly doubt that these villains would bother with precision slicing the guns. They would just kill them straight up. I mean, they were clearly going to do that to the security guy earlier, and they reference killing Spider-Man later. So to me, it doesn't really make sense that they're just being so gentle with these guys, but I guess sometimes you gotta look past that sort of thing. Peter, in the meantime, is still knocked out until he's roused by Norman's voice over the masked built-in radio. From here, Norman proves his worth to Peter, showing off his experience, his intelligence, and his intuition about how Peter can have a chance against the two villains one-on-one. Or rather, one-on-two. Specifically, he tells him to focus his hearing on the turbo boost noise of the shoes as they prepare to go into overdrive. That way, he doesn't have to be able to see Speed Demon, he'll simply know when to dodge and be able to counterattack. This leads him on a little chase, and then into a tripwire trap which takes Speed Demon out of the fight, and allows Peter to pretty much instantly take down Tarantula. Yeah, so I guess I was right, she couldn't take him one-on-one. It was literally the concept of 2 versus 1 that kept him from taking her down instantly. Their gear overloads, the villains get arrested, and Peter returns to Oscorp to speak with Norman. I gotta say, this part where Peter sneaks in through the window and scares Norman by accident when we were staring at the computer, looking at that mysterious symbol on the gear, it made me laugh a lot. I'm really starting to like Norman as well. How many of these characters do I have to grow to enjoy, only to see them eventually go crazy or turn on Peter? I suppose I'd better be grateful they didn't include Uncle Ben in the show, only to kill him off at the end of the first season for maximum angst. If nothing else, this show is really making so many of the characters deeply likable with such close connections to Peter. If they can pull it off, this show is going to be epic by the end. And so, as Peter welcomes Norman to the team to ensure he's going to be able to overcome any villains he comes face to face with, a new villain is also in the making, as Lonnie is officially inducted into the gang. And I have to say, it still feels terrible. I hate this. I hate it. Damn it, Dre! And so with all that being said, that's the end of the episode, and these have all been my opinions, and now I'd like to hear yours. What did you think of this episode? Did you like it, hate it? I'm curious for your thoughts, so make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and let me know.